But what's different here is that when we enter this data into the Sigma input table, it's written directly back to the warehouse. It's not siloed off in some spreadsheet or some other source system. Hey there, my name is Oscar Bashaw. I am a solutions architect here at Sigma. So with the pipeline forecasting data application that I built, we were trying to solve the issue of sales leaders not having complete visibility into their pipeline, but also not being able to forecast accurately up and down the organization. So without this application, there are kind of two approaches that most companies would take. One would be that each rep or each manager manages their deals in a spreadsheet where the data is not live. It's not really a structured way of doing forecasting. There's no associated data in there. It's just kind of the bare bones, most unstructured approach you can think. And then the alternative would be to buy a purpose-built SaaS application like a Clari or an Exactly that is just built for this one purpose. And those tools are powerful, but they can't always be as flexible as we need or integrate with all the data sources that we need. I'm going to walk you through a data app that sales teams can use to manage their opportunities. It's based on something that a lot of our customers use Sigma for, and also an internal use case that we have. In today's video, I'm going to showcase how two personas, both an account executive and their manager, would use this app, and I'll show how we built a couple pieces of it along the way. So this tool makes some key improvements over other pipeline forecasting approaches. First, because Sigma is live on top of the cloud data warehouse, we can incorporate any data source we need and create a true 360-degree view of pipeline. Second, this can be customized to whatever experience or modules your team needs. It's not hamstrung by the capabilities of some existing tool. Then third, we're able to consolidate and standardize a workflow that's usually disjoint and cumbersome into one cohesive experience. And at the end, I'll have a little bonus section as well. I'll start off by role-playing as Marlo Nilsson, who's an account executive. We're on this homepage now, which is similar to what you might find in other pipeline forecasting tools. We've got some KPIs, a funnel chart for pipeline by stage. We can see what our current attainment and coverage is, so we can compare booked with quota, a couple of different scenarios that we have, commit and best case, as well as the deals that are in commit and the deals in best case as well. And also our team built in this action items module, which shows us deals that are in a few key categories we might want to pay attention to. So that's deals with no activity in the last 7 days, deals with tech risk, or deals where ACV is decreased. And if we click inspect on any one of these categories, we can actually jump right into the deal board and see which deals fit into that category. Now, this is important because it's a live view of our pipeline. And instead of having to comb through individual Salesforce opportunities or jump into a spreadsheet and update that, we have a live, consistent view here of all the deals that are in my pipe for this quarter. So Marlo, as a rep, can comb through each deal, and beyond just seeing some information about the deal, she can actually add her own commentary and her own forecast about each deal. If I click Edit Data, I can change the category for this Nucleus New Business deal from commit to best case. Maybe I heard some stuff in our last call that makes me a little bit more weary about this deal. I can also add in some information about next steps, whatever other categories I might want to capture, and click Save. Now, you've probably seen this workflow in Excel or other pipeline forecasting tools, but what's different here is that when we enter this data into the Sigma input table, it's written directly back to the warehouse. It's not siloed off in some spreadsheet or some other source system, but when it's in the warehouse, it's actually immediately available for downstream use. In general, these input tables allow you to capture additional data and context from end users in a structured way, enriching the existing data in the warehouse. So now that Marlo has updated her deals, she can go update her full quarter forecast. This form shows Marlo her most recent forecast for the quarter, which is a commit of 415 and a best case of 490. And we also have the ability to input a new one. And these different scenarios here, the commit and the best case, are something that my RevOps team has defined. And like everything else that I've showed you so far in today's demo, these inputs are entirely customizable to what your team needs. So seeing now that we have 203K in commit, I'll put that in here. And my best case will be a little bit closer to 400,000. So 535 here. I can add some notes as well. And then I'll submit my forecast. We'll see it update here on the left-hand side with dynamic text. And now let me pause and show you how this piece actually works. So coming out of Persona now, I'm going to go into edit mode on this workbook and show you the underlying workflow behind this forecasting. So looking at our little form here, it's comprised of a few controls or just input sections that we've built in, and it's driven by this button. So with Sigma's actions framework, we can define a few things to happen when this button is clicked. The first thing we want to happen is we want to capture the inputs from these different control elements and insert a row into a table and keep track of these forecasts as they come in. So this insert row action basically says when this button is clicked, we're going to capture the values from these controls along with a couple of formulas and insert them to certain columns in this input table, which I'll show you in a second. So the commit goes into the commit column, the best case goes into the best case column, notes into notes, etc. But for forecast date, which is today, we actually use a formula to capture the current date and insert that. So once these rows are inserted or this information is inserted, we want to clear the other controls and then refresh. Let me move over to the forecast input page now to show you where this information is coming in. You can see this fourth row here is the new row we've just added. And this input table has the columns that we mapped in that last section. So this is kind of a historical log of all the forecasts we've made, and we can come back and look at this over time. And what we've done on the right-hand side here is basically just found the most recent forecasts and the amounts. And we're displaying that with dynamic text on the rep homepage down here. So now I'm going to switch and assume the persona of Ella, who's Marlowe's manager. So let me transition to that experience. So now looking at this workbook from Ella's point of view, things are going to be a little bit different, and that's by design. This homepage looks pretty similar to the one that we had for Marlowe, but we've added one section at the bottom here where the manager can come in and forecast for each rep that rolls into them. We see now that this manager homepage is a little bit different than the rep homepage we just saw, and that's by design. So Ella, as a manager, can come in, see what each rep has booked, what their quota is, what the reps are committing. And we can see that Marlowe's 203K has come in here. But Ella can actually come in and add her own scenarios for Marlowe as well. So Ella can give her own commit and her own best case. Right now, it looks like there's some discrepancy between what Marlowe is forecasting and what Ella's forecasting. So we want to investigate that. So looking again at the deal board, we can see that for Alta Retail, this $90,000 deal in stage 5, Marlowe has it in commit, but Ella has it in best case. And this is the kind of risk that we talk about when it comes to pipeline forecasting and why it's so important to have this live, up-to-date view of things. Notice that Ella can edit these manager forecast columns here, but not the rep forecast columns that Marlowe could edit as a rep. And that's flexible, but it's by design here. So whatever editing rules or column specs you want to set up, you can do that with Sigma. So to understand who's right, Ella needs more context about this deal. How have the recent calls gone with Alta? Did they have a lot of usage during the POV? When was the last activity, etc.? And with other pipeline forecasting tools and approaches, those questions might require that Ella go to Gong, Slack, and a BI tool to get more information before arriving at a conclusion. That becomes really painful when managing a lot of deals. There's no guarantee that you can get all the information that you need. So in Sigma, we actually consolidate that experience by bringing those additional data sources into this application. And we can view them here in this overlay. So this little pop-up has more information about the Alta Retail deal that we're pulling straight from the warehouse. We've got information about the call activity, so we can see a timeline of all the calls we've had, and they're kind of colored by their sentiment. So it seems like it's been pretty positive lately. We can look at POV usage data, which is activity coming off of our SaaS application that we're selling. And it looks pretty healthy. But for Ella to feel really confident about having this deal in her commit, she has a couple questions that she can only really get from watching call recordings or asking the rep directly. And that can take a while. So it'd be nice if we could use an LLM or the power of AI to answer some of those questions for us. Well, Ella's data team actually built a model that lives in the warehouse that can take into account some context about the deal and use that to answer Ella's question. Let's see if we've talked pricing yet with Alta. Now, when I click submit, this question is going to be fired back at that model. It's going to go find some relevant context and display that here as an answer to me. So it looks like, yes, pricing has been discussed. There have been some concerns, but based on this answer, Ella thinks that they can get this deal in this quarter. And now she feels confident moving it into commit. So again, she can make that edit here directly in the input table and write it back directly to the cloud data warehouse. So that's how Ella, a manager, would use this app to mitigate risk in her pipeline as a different persona than the account executive. As we saw, she was able to make forecasts for her team, get visibility all the way down to the deal level, and consolidate her workflow into one tool with extra data sources, and then use the power of AI to make a fully informed forecast. I'll quickly show you how we were able to interact with an AI model in the warehouse. Let me jump into edit mode to show you. So on the deal board, when someone clicks on this details column, we track the opportunity that they're clicking about. From there, we open up this details overlay, which has all the additional information about that op. We filter this down at the time of click, and we show some call activity, POV details, etc. And then at the bottom, we have this question and response section. So the question is just a simple input. And then the response is a function call. And I'll explain how that works. So we pass in both the question and the opportunity to the AI assistant in the warehouse. It uses that to filter down the relevant documents, provide some more context, and then answer the question from the user. And that's how this response happens here. So this is really powerful for both end users and data practitioners alike. For end users, it means that they can leverage the power of AI in a straightforward, governed fashion to improve their daily workflows. And for data teams, it means that they can incorporate AI in a way that makes sense for their peers and increases adoption of the models that they've developed. So to conclude, let's just summarize what we did today. We started off as Marlowe to see the account executive experience, interacted with some KPIs and action items, made a forecast at the deal level, and then made a forecast at the quarter level. This was all live and done in a structured fashion that scales to accommodate big teams. We also saw how we built that forecasting form. Then we transitioned to Ella with the manager experience. We saw her ability to have a custom experience inside this application, to see her team's forecast and add her own. She inspected a deal with a deal board and saw additional data sources that wouldn't be available in other pipeline forecasting tools. And then she used an AI model to get a better understanding of the deal, really working AI in where it made sense for her in the workflow. The coolest part of the pipeline forecasting app is the ability to pull in any data source that you want that's relevant to the deals that are in your pipeline. In this application that I built, that's the ability to pull in product usage data and then also Gong transcripts. And then on top of that, we actually built a question and answer bot using LLMs that live in the warehouse so that end users can actually ask questions about a deal and get an answer from the call transcripts. So that saves everyone a bit of time having to go back and watch recordings or ask someone for their notes, etc. So that flexibility in bringing in any data source and doing so much with that unstructured data is what excites me the most. So if you're just starting out on Sigma and you want to build your first data app, I would say start small. And that doesn't mean with a trivial project or something that's not important. Find something important that's high value to the business, but make sure that it's got a kind of a clear path to success. And you can account for all the different pieces of the app that you want to build. Don't shoot for the pie in the sky right away. Take something tangible that's going to make material impact and that you can iterate quickly on.